Hi everyone. Seems that I'm online. All right, cool. Everything seems to be working. Hopefully. So welcome. Glad to have you, everyone who's online. And yeah, let's get into it. So I'm now back into my application, into my Trello application, and today what I want to do is to play a little with the intercept command that has come out with the version 6 of Cypress. So just to show you a little, this is the app that I'm testing. This is like this Trello clone app, and the app is fairly simple. So I got a new board. Inside those boards there are a couple of lists you can create, like this new list, and inside the list you can create a task which you can check off, or click inside a detail where you can add some kind of description if you want to, change the due date. So if it's like negative, then the whole thing goes red, and you can upload a picture. And we were playing with that last time, where I showed a couple of plugins, yeah, we showed how to upload a file using a plugin. Oh, Paul, hi from Kenya. Wow, nice to see you here. Welcome. So here I have my app, and it's running. It's simple npm start, which is going to run my application. It's very simple, and if you want, you can just download this from my GitHub page. And I think I like always include this link inside the chat. So if you want to check it out, you can find it on GitHub. And you can maybe follow along or install. The installation is easy. It's just npm install and then npm start. That's it. And yeah, so today a new block came out. Oops, accidentally opened the RSS feed. So new block on my page came out, which is migrating root to intercept. So you may or may not know that Cypress has released version 6, and what they have done is, let's look into the changelog. What they have done is they have added a new command, intercept, which was previously known as root2, which was in experimental mode. And Cypress team has completely rewritten how they do network stubbing, and gave a lot of new capabilities for this root command, or root2, or now called intercept. And what they did as well is that they effectively have deprecated the old root command. So if you go to documentation and look into the root command, you can see there are a lot of messages. So the CY server and CY root, they're deprecated, but you can still use them. It's no problem. So feel free to update to Cypress 6. It's an awesome experience, so you should definitely do that. And here is the old syntax of root. So you could use the URL, you could stop the response, so you can provide the response which the server would provide, and or you can just pass an options object, which would change it all. Where you can not change it all, but where you would define all of the options like method, URL, response body, status, and stuff like that. And in the new intercept command, the syntax is slightly different. So as you can see in the awesome Cypress documentation, the syntax has changed a little. Not much. It depends on what you want to do. But yeah, so you have your URL or root handler. So basically you handle what you will do with that matched URL. Or you can add a method URL and then handle that. Or you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with root matcher. So you can match the URL you want to match by query, by port, by HTTP, and stuff like that. So it's awesome. So let's jump into it. Let's see what it does. So I'm going to create a new test, and I'm just going to name it test. So nothing too fancy here, and I'll create a new test, and I will visit my application, and I just put a slash into here because I have the base URL already here. And this is old news, experimental network stubbing. I'm not going to use that anymore because it's out of beta, it's out of experimental mode. So let me just open Cypress by npx Cypress open, and we'll wait for it to open. I'll give it a few seconds, and Paul is already asking a question, I think. And this thing at work on Friday into something that is, I did present Cypress and everybody was happy about it. Oh, that's some great news. So you showed Cypress to the company and they loved it. Well, it's easy to love Cypress. I mean, it's a really, really nice tool. As you can tell, I'm a huge fan, so so that's great. Hope that you will have a lot of success with Cypress. That it will help you with your testing efforts. It certainly has helped me. All right, so here is the Trello app, and as you can see, there are a couple of things happening here, but these first two and the second two requests that are happening here, these are just requests to socket.io. But here is an HTTP request, right? So let's look into what it does. What it does is that it fetches the list of my boards. So here's the request. I can look into the request and response. So after the response comes in, my list of my boards is displayed. So let me try to do it the old way first. So I need to type server, and as you can see, the VS Code is actually showing me that this command is deprecated. So if you're using TypeScript, or if you're using I think it even works with JS DOM, then you'll be able to see that the method is deprecated. You still get documentation, so no worries there. And I'm going to root, and I'm going to root the API boards, and I will give it an alias of get boards. Right. So now when I run my test, I can see that it is aliased. Now, if I have a command like this, I can just rewrite it to intercept, because if you look into the documentation, I can use the URL, the method URL, and the third argument, the root handler, is actually not required. That's this, you know, by the question mark in here, right? So it's not required. So now when I save my test, I'm going to delete this server. This should work, and it does, right? It has aliased my get boards. Now, when I played with this last week, I think I have had some kind of problem here, and I think there is something actually, and I don't know if that's me or that's some kind of bug, but there's this gray dot, and I don't think this works too well, but it has been working for the other commands. So let's try to root the other commands, so I don't spend too much time looking into what is the problem, and I'm going to just create a new board. So I will write a simple test where I click on this create a board button. I'll input my text, and then I click save, or I just hit enter, and that will create a board. So I'll hide this for now, and after I visit, I'll get my board. So let's select it by text. I'm going to use contains for that. That is a very good command, right? So I can select an H1 that contains this text. If I did everything correctly, it's going to select this. Yeah, it does. That's great. So I will click on it, and after I click on it, what I want to do is to find this text area, which I'll just select by placeholder. So get placeholder, and I'll type new board, and then I will type enter. Now when I save this, yes, it's going to create a new board, and I'll look for this particular request, so the post request of API boards. So let me just put this back, and I'm going to alias create board, because that's more like it. Now, looking into documentation, I can see that I actually don't even have to put in the method. I can just put in the URL, and this is going to match all of my requests. So if I save this, what it will do is it's going to actually match 3 I have a Cypress IO inquiry. Okay. Let's just turn off the notifications. Yep. All right, so it actually matches 3 of the API requests. And now when I look into the detail of this and put it out in my console, I can actually see that it matches the get request of API boards. It matches the post request, which happens when I create a new board, and then it matches the API boards / ID of my board, which is also get. So this is not good. I'm matching too much stuff. So how about we narrow our matching by post, right? Because I want to just, I'm interested now only in the request that happens when I create a new board. So now when I save this, it's actually showing just just a single request, just a create board, and that's good. That's what I wanted, and I'm going to give that test a better name. So it should create a new board, right? So this is what I want to test if I create a new board. So yeah, and when I look into the list of my boards, it's actually creating a new board each time I save my file or each time I run my test. So I have like all these boards being created, and in this application I have actually created a solution for this, which is a simple request. So I just call an HTTP request that is of method post, and it's going to reset my app. So as you can see, I have just one board, and I always start with a clean boards. So what it does, I actually shown this in my previous streams, that I have this application uses a JSON database. So it is just a JSON file. The whole database is just a JSON file. So whenever I create something, so if I create a new list, I create it, it's going to appear here in my database, right? So it has appeared. So now I can see it. If I decide to delete it, it's just going to be deleted from this JSON file. And I have created an API that basically is just going to reset the whole JSON file to its initial state. I could do that with some other way, like using task, but I'm not going to jump into that now. I'll jump into that maybe next time. Okay, so let's look into the intercept command. And by the way, if you have any questions, if you'd like to ask anything, go ahead, ask. Maybe I'll have answer, maybe I can try it out for you, and maybe we'll have to just search for the answer. We'll see. Alright, so I have just changed the root command to the intercept. So that was pretty easy, right? But what if I want to change the response, right? Well, with the old root command, I could just give a third argument that either could be like an empty array or empty object, whatever I wanted, right? And that would become the response. But with intercept command, you actually can do much more. You not only can change the response of your API call, but you can change the request. You can change the request headers, response headers, and lots of other stuff. And I have actually also written a blog about this when I was exploring this a little more, while it was still called an experimental network stubbing. And what you could do here is to add a custom header by passing a function. So this root handler can either be an object where you can pass an object and give that object some kind of properties, which I'm going to show you in a moment. But you can also pass a function, and that function can be used to change the values of the request, of the response, and yeah, you can even like parse the whole body, add another key to that body, and stuff like that. So be sure to check it out. What I'm doing here in this blog, what I'm showcasing here, that I have this to-dos app where I will enter the text new to-do item, but when I press the enter button, I'm going to intercept that request, and I'm going to change I think I'm changing the request body here, right? Yeah, I'm actually changing the request body here. So what's being sent is changed when it enters the network. So that's pretty cool. Maybe we can try it even here, but let's start with something more basic. Let's start with how you can actually migrate your existing root commands to the intercept commands, because that's, let's be honest, that will be the first step you're going to do. So as I said, the third argument can be an object, and if you want to pass a fixture from your fixtures folder, then what you can do is to add an attribute or fixture, and you can pass just the response of that. And as a response, you'll just pass the name of that boards.json file. So I can just type boards, and Cypress will automatically know that it's going to pass this one. But this boards.json is actually the list of my boards. So instead of using the post just for a moment, I'm going to use the get. I'm going to use the boards fixture. It's going to be get boards, and I'll comment this out for a moment. So we'll reset this whole state, and I can actually put this into before each. It makes more sense here, so we don't pollute our tests with stuff that doesn't belong there. I actually like to put intercept and stuff like that also into before each, but that kind of depends. So I'm just going to declare this intercept command. I'm going to give the API boards, the get API boards API call, I'm going to give it a fixture, which is tralala. So I'm going to change it to hello there, and I'll save this. I'll save my test and run it, and as you can see, it's now hello there. Now if I change my fixture to hello world, I save it and rerun my test, you can see it says hello world. And if I look into the roots that I have matched, you can see that this is stopped, and there was exactly one call to the get boards of the get method API/boards URL, and here it is. So, but what if I don't want to use the JSON file, but what if I want to put an object? So for example, I'll create a new variable or constant in this file, in this case constant, I'm going to call it my stub, and it's going to be an array, and let's just, I don't know, let's just copy this. But what I will do is the start will be true, and the hello world will be live streaming now. And yeah, so instead of fixture, I'm not going to pass this like this. Although, does this work? I don't think so. Yeah, it doesn't work. Instead of this, I'm going to use a body argument, and the body will be this object, my stub. So it's going to be the array of objects, and I'm using array of objects because that is something that my application actually expects. It's whenever I open my app, it's going to expect in the array of objects with the name of my boards and IDs and stuff like that. So now when I save this, it's live streaming now, and as you can see, it's start. So this is my start section, and whenever a board is start, it's going to appear also here. So we have successfully stubbed the body. Paul, yeah. If Paul is asking if I'm going to stream a sign up flow, a code is sent to your email. That is that I think I will do in the future, because I do have a login here and I do have a sign up here, and I actually sent a welcome email. So yeah, that will be a good topic for some future stream. I'm definitely going to cover that, and I am actually covering a similar thing. It's not really about the sign up. It's actually more about the email flow, where you will get your emails, where you would get an email and there would be some kind of link or something like that inside that email. And I talk about how to test that, and I talk about this in my course. So you can find my course on Udemy, and yeah, let me just find it, Cypress, and I called it Cypress automation for people in a hurry. That's it. That's me. So the name is actually an homage to a great book by Neil deGrasse Tyson. He wrote a book called Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. You should definitely read that. It's an amazing book. But yeah, I do talk about sign up flow, where an email has a part in it, and you can check it out. Yeah. Which VS Code I'm using? It's Monokai Pro. I recommend it. It's beautiful, and it's really nicely readable. So it's available for VS Code and Sublime Text. It's actually a premium theme, so you need to buy it, or else you're just going to get this annoying message that is going to remind you every time to buy it. It's actually not that expensive. It's 9.95 euros. So I think it's a good thing to help these guys that created this theme, to support them. So I use the Octagon, I think. Yeah, use the Octagon theme, and you have various color choices here. So I'll definitely recommend. All right, so we took a little side tour here, but thank you for those questions. Andre showed up. Hey, hello, Andre. Nice to have you here again. So let's maybe look back into the intercept command. So we have successfully used our fixture and the body and the constant to change the request or the response body. So this is the first thing you would do when you will migrate your root commands to the intercept. So if you're just using it to check the body, to wait for a couple of your requests, then that will be fairly easy. Okay, so let's put this back, and let's again try to intercept that post request, so the one that is actually going to be creating my new board. I will delete this for now, and I'm not going to pass any body, but what I wanted to try is to test for an error message. So whenever I try to create a new board and my server is returning an error, there's a message that appears, an error message, the red one. And previously in the root command, when I wanted to test an error message, and I passed a response, or I rather passed the whole options object, I needed to add, if I wanted to change the status, for example, for 500, and I wanted to, then I also needed to add the response. So let me just check out how this looks. So in this root matcher, root handler object, root handler, yeah. In this root handler, let's look into status. So we can change the status code. I'm going to give it 500 and let's see what happens. Oh yeah, okay, so if I just want to change the request, I can just do that. And let me look into the console what this actually returns. It doesn't return anything, it just returns the status code. Does it? Yeah, the body is empty, or the response body is empty, and just the status code comes back. So this is one of my favorite use cases for network stubbing, right? So I don't need to turn off my server or anything, but I can check if there's this message, if it appears when it should appear, right? So when the response comes and the response is not 200 but it's actually 500, so it has created an error. I want to make sure that this message actually appears, because it's an important error message, right? So to create a test like this, I can just pass an object, so the root handler, and give that an argument of status code. And I can just give it a status code of 500, and I'll see how my app behaves when there's an error. That's pretty neat. I like this. So let's go back into the documentation and let's see what we can do. So there's let's look into the root handler. Oh, this is important information. So you can match your URL by using string or substring. I think that's more correct. So you are using substring. So previously when I just used get and run my test, you can actually see that it is matched twice, right? So so the URL I'm matching is API/boards, and it did match my get request where I get all of my boards, and it also matched the get API boards / and the ID of the board. So as the documentation correctly says, it is matching a substring. Or I can use regular expression, or I can use minimatch, right? So if I just want to match that second request, the one with the board ID, I'll change it to get board just to give it a proper naming, and I saved it. It should match only the second one, and it didn't for some reason. So let's see why that would be. So I have get API boards / a star or asterisk, and it didn't match. So I wonder why that is. If I put 2 here, no, doesn't work. So maybe I did get something wrong. If you know what I got wrong, then tell me, because this should match, right? API boards, is it an API /boards number of the or ID of the created board. Not sure why that doesn't get matched. That might be a good thing to look into, right? So, because this is something I use a lot, right? I match my board by minimatch. So if I have a URL method, let's see what happens if I don't give it a method and I just use the URL. It doesn't match either. And if I put it like this without the asterisk, it matches. Okay, that's interesting. So I should be able to use minimatch, but it seems either I'm doing some kind of error here or it doesn't work. Club match, so all the properties are optional root matcher. So this is a whole root matcher, right? So the whole thing, if I can pass a whole object into my intercept command, and I can choose headers, hostname, HTTPS, method, path name, everything that's here. So that's something that should seems like it should work. And the URL is string origin specify URL. See the documentation of how the URLs are matched. So let's see, maybe if I need to pass this whole object. Doesn't make too much sense to me, but maybe it will once I understand this. So it did match now. Let's see if I use a mini match. It didn't now. Maybe I need to match it like this. Oh, okay. Okay, so it seems that so it seems that by default this is a I can use a string, but if I use a mini matcher, I need to be specific enough and need to match the whole URL. So double asterisk says that anything before that, there can be any kind of string before this string, and there can be a string after this slash, right? So I think this should also work. Okay, now it I think makes sense, right? So, and maybe I'm just interpreting this in not very precise way, but what it looks like is that if I'm not using any matcher, then it's just going to take a substring, right? So this behaves like substring. But if I use the asterisk, then it's actually mini matching, but it's actually mini matching the whole URL. So either I'll put HTTP localhost 3000/API/port/something, or I'll put a mini match operator, the double asterisk here. I guess I learned something today. All right. So this looks cool. Okay, so let's do something. Let's try to play with this a little. So I can add a query. Unfortunately, I don't have any queries in this app, but maybe I'll add some, and then we are in for some fun. But I wanted to try the root handler too. I think I wanted to try something in the root handler here. So I'm stubbing, I can stub a response here. And yeah, I can either create a static response. So I'm just going to pass the third argument. It's going to be on object. There's a fixture, body, status code. We tried that. And I can do some other stuff like force network error or delay this. Let's delay this. Let's see what happens here. I've never done this. This might be nice. Let's delay this by 3 seconds and see what happens. Oh, cool. It's loading. And it didn't. My application crashed. Seems like it did. Did it? It seems so, actually. Yeah, I think my application doesn't really handle this kind of situations where this command would just wait for so long. Maybe. Or maybe I'm doing something wrong. But either way, I have created these tests and I have created this application, so either way I'm probably doing something something wrong. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, I found out what I wanted to actually show you today. And that's something that I also have showcased in my blog. So the routing or intercepting these API calls is actually only half of the story, right? Because what we do in our tests often is not only that we match them and we wait for them, but we actually test them, right? So let's test this, and I think I can actually copy this because I copied this from my test. Now let's just delete this, and I'm going to use the post. And this is the API call that I'm doing when I'm creating a new board, right? So I contain click type, and what I did before is that I destructured this object that is yielded by this wait command, and it would contain a request body, response body, and a status. And the request body was just a shorthand for a request for a body object inside a request object, and same goes for the response body. It would be a body object inside the response object, and I kind of like these, but it seems that Cypress decided to leave these two. So now when I do this, it actually fails, right? So, oh, and it failed, but it failed for a different reason, right? So if I read this error message, I can see that it could not find a registered alias for createBoard, and the only available is getBoard, right? So I kind of failed with the naming because I left it. I changed this request, but I still named it getBoard. So let's change it to createBoard, save it, and let it fail for a different reason now, right? So previously with the root command, if you have waited for your aliased request, you would get a slightly different object, right? So I have now ID, log, request, response, and stuff like this. Whereas before it was slightly different. So I had this request body, response body, status, but I still want to check these, right? I want to check the request body, I want to check the response body, I want to check the status. So let's now just hide these for a moment and start with the status. So there's no status anymore, but if I want to check that, I will find it in the response object, and you can see it right here. So it's the status code. So if I want to write an assertion for this, I'm going to need a response, and I'll actually assert that the response status code is equal to 201, right? So now when I save this, my test should pass, and it did. That's cool. But I want to check also these things, right? I want to check the request body name, because when I'm hitting the enter button, I'm sending where do I have it? I'm sending some attributes inside the body, right? So I'm sending the name of the board, and that will be the new board. So I want to check if what I have typed in here is actually being sent by the application here. So I'll destructure also the response, the request, sorry, and I will look into the request body name, right? So when I look into the wait command, I can see what it has yielded. So whenever I write an assertion like this, when I wait for something and then use then function to write my assertions here, I can look into what the wait command has yielded, right? So every time I want to use the previous command, I want to use the parent command, I can look into what it is yielding, and I can write tests for that, or I can work with that in some other way. So I want to look into the request body, and I want to check the attribute name, which is going to be new board. So request body name. That's how I changed it now. So now when I saved it, looks good. Let's continue with these three, and the pattern is going to be similar, right? So I want to look into the created attribute, and that should be the present day name. So I'm using Cypress moment to get the current date and to format that date into this format. So that would be year hyphen month hyphen day. This is actually how the created date of the board looks like. So when I look into the response body, you can see that it has a string of created date 2020 12/07, which is today's date. So that's how I check this. So I'll just do it like this. So I selected all three, and I know that the response body changed to response.body. So it's a body object inside the response object. And this actually, if you used, you could have used syntax like this before. The additional thing with the root command was that you had that response body shorthand for your request, and I was using that. So if I'm migrating my commands, my root commands to intercept, I need to change that. So yeah, so I'm checking also the response body name, which should equal new board. So the request should not change when coming back from server, and by default my boards should not be starred, right? So as I showed you, when I look into my boards, there's a star button, and if I click it, it's going to be added to the start section, but when I create a new board, it should by default not be starred. So these are some of the attributes I'm checking inside my test, and when I save this, you can actually already see it passing. So I created my new board, and I'm checking the request and the response and the status and everything important. So yeah, that's just a short short overview of what can be done. But I mean, this is just the migration part, right? So I'm just doing anything that the previous root command could do. I'm not doing anything extra, but believe me, this command can do a lot of extra stuff, right? So as I said, I have been playing with that command when it came as an experimental feature. And yeah, you can do a lot of stuff. And by the way, if you're interested, you can not only check my blog, but I recommend you to check out a blog of a really cool guy called Gleb Bahmuto, and he wrote a summary, made a video, wrote a blog about all kinds of stuff you can do, especially if you're interested in stubbing GraphQL. There's a blog about that, and it's a really cool one. My application doesn't use GraphQL, and I don't even meet with GraphQL in my work. So this is not really an area of my expertise. But if this is something that you are dealing with, that you need to do, I definitely recommend checking out Gleb's blog. I'm going to send it to the stream chat so we can check it out. So definitely do so. By the way, if your application or whatever you are testing, if you are using fetch, that is something you can also work with flawlessly now with intercept. So previously, if you're using root, you can only route your XHR requests, and that has changed with, I think, version 4.9 or something like that. I'm not really sure when the experimental fetch support has came out. But with intercept, you got that out of the box. Also, what you can do is with intercept, you can match your static files. So if I look into all of the files that are loaded, so for example CSS files, I can actually match this and even change the response. So I can actually change the CSS if I want to do that for some reason. I can look into, what else can I look into? Static files. I even tried to wait for images to load, and that seemed to work with most of the cases. So yeah, there's a lot to be that you can play with. So I encourage you to do so. And if you do, well then make sure you hop on to the Discord channel or Discord server that we have. I'm going to paste the link. It's just a bit.ly link cy-discord where there's a small but very eager community forming around testing with Cypress and learning Cypress. So I suggest you join us and we can talk. You can talk to me, and you can talk to other people. There are many people that are testing with Cypress, so I'm sure if you're looking for an advice, someone will help you out there. All right, so we are reaching now an hour now, and I like to keep this short and sweet, so I think I'll wrap it up for today. So thank you, Paul, thank you, Andriy, for joining me today, and I guess I'll see you in a week. So yeah, bye bye for now. Have a great day.